Welcome into Lesson 11 of East Main 101. I am your facilitator, City of Jackson Communications Director Kenneth Cummings, and today for Lesson 11, we have our Director of Health and Sanitation, Leilani Mills. Leilani,
Hello.
I got you on.
Yes.
Yes. I'm excited to talk about and to provide education on all things health and sanitation, from bulk waste to trash pickup, all the things. So I want to start off with reading a bio for Leilani. Leilani is the Director of Health and Sanitation Department for the City of Jackson, where she has been tasked to monitor departmental contracts to achieve compliance, oversee the enforcement of the city's solid waste ordinance, and direct our operations. She has served in public works with the City of Jackson for 24 years. She began her career in the street department, which is in the same building as Public Works, where multiple services were provided and directed out of that one department. She started in the department as a clerk and dispatcher and later learned about stormwater, street construction, street maintenance, and curbside debris collection. In her latter years, she became the office coordinator and assisted with a couple of restructures within Public Works. In 2020, Leilani accepted the position of director with Health and Sanitation Department. Her goal is to continue working to improve quality services, encourage recycling and reuse, and maintain a cleaner environment. She is married to her wonderful husband, Scott, and they have 3 adult children who are all successful and married. They have 5 precious grandchildren and are excited to welcome their 6th grandchild in October. It's a great month to be born. They love to camp and spend quality time exploring new places. Leilani Mills, Director of Health and Sanitation. I joked earlier saying I got you on because I know how you are with cameras.
That's right.
And it's fine. This is different. It's
right.
me and you. We're just talking. We're educating our residents on all things related to trash, bulk waste, because we get a lot of questions about it, even still today, after the big green monster came into the city. So let's start off just talking about the basic thing. You've been in public works, like you said, for over 20 years. You don't look a day over 30. So you must have started when you were 5.
Yes.
So you started off in the street department, and I mean, that encompasses a lot anyway. So if you don't mind, just kind of tell us about your role starting off in the street department.
Well, I started out as the dispatcher. I learned so much in public works through that. We did the city service calls, so all calls came in to the street department. We did stormwater construction. We picked up bulk waste. We picked up even the smaller brush piles along the
Street
side.
department.
Yes, street department. Wow. We did the loose leaf routes. We did potholes. And again, going back to the street construction, that was stormwater. They replaced pipes and all kinds of stuff. I mean, I learned so much working for the street department.
And so a lot of that, of course, street potholes and things like that, street construction. But you mentioned picking up things. You would think that would fall under health and sanitation.
Right.
So it does now.
It does
right?
now.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So working in street department, how did you know that you wanted to move over to health and sanitation? What was that transition like?
Well, I honestly thought after 20 years of being with the street department, that's where I was going to be, and God had other plans.
Mm-hmm.
During the COVID and the furlough, there was a phone call made and asked if I would do an interim for a short time and see what I thought about it. And of course, 4 years later, here I am.
So you start off as an interim director for H&S,
Right.
and when you got over there, I mean, I'm sure it's totally different from street.
Yes.
What made you realize, okay, I can do this?
It was a major challenge at first. What I brought to that seat was organization, coordinating. Like I mentioned before, I had been a part of a couple of restructuring where, at some point, past administration had taken several of those departmental duties and moved them to where they needed to go. That's when the first restructure was when Health and Sanitation took over the bulk waste pickup.
Okay.
But when I got over to Health and Sanitation, it was in a very trying time. COVID was going on, and Health and Sanitation needed a major overhaul. It really did. There was not a whole lot of organization, and then, of course, the mayor kind of had a couple of things he wanted done. One of those was that bulk waste needed to be scheduled. The other one was that we needed to go curbside with the solid waste instead of the back door that was going on for several years, or, well, I'd say several years is 30 years plus.
Wow.
And then he wanted a successful recycling program. So upon my first year, I was the voice of reason. I had to kind of get in and figure out which way we were going to go. And I had multiple meetings with the mayor and told him, what was really going on and which directions we kind of needed to go and what needed to be priority. So priority was the solid waste curbside where the green monsters came in. We were kind of behind on times doing backyard or backdoor services. Was old school, and it wasn't efficient for any hauler. They're walking around searching for garbage cans and nothing uniform about it. Okay. So it was not an efficient service.
So you mentioned earlier that the street department took all the service calls. This was prior to the 311. We had Austin on, the director of public works, and we talked a lot in length about the 311. So when people called prior to this change in public works street department and before you got over, they would call the 425 city number and it would go to the street department.
It would.
And street department handled, like, if with 311 now, you can call and do a lot of things, like from animal pickup to litter to, building and codes. That number, you all at street department had to pick that up and turn it over to like animal services and things like that.
Excuse me.
So 311, I guess you could say, would you say it has been a help for your department or just public works in general?
Yeah. We would transfer calls wherever they needed to go. You just kind of helped citizens go wherever they needed to go. We were the street department, so we handled quite a bit of public works.
That's, for those who did not know or didn't know or don't know, that's an amazing change for the city, for one department, street department, to get the numbers and then everything be transferred over to their correct department. But thankfully we have the 311, and have you noticed call volume going down with not just 311, but with the new implementation of a lot of the services?
Absolutely.
So kind of talk about how that, well, first of all, let's go back to what you were interim. Did you make the decision to say, okay, I can do this, or was that a decision from a higher up saying, I see the potential that you have, I need you to handle this?
Administration.
Okay. So administration saw and I've seen, and I've said this for a lot of departments that I've talked to already, I've seen the change and the progress that the departments have made. And for health and sanitation, I've seen the work. I've come in and hear how quiet it is now, the phones. And you've done an amazing job. And the morale over there, it's from what I've seen, the men and women who work over there, they have a passion for what they do, and they want to make sure that the city's clean, because many of them may live in the city and they want the same clean things that everyone else does.
That's right.
So probably the bulk of this lesson will be talking about trash and bulk waste. And it's a huge topic. It's a big topic from when we start off. When I moved here in 2010, backdoor service, where people could just put their trash in their backyard in a trash bin or bring it out front, and kind of explain to those who are watching or listening what the backdoor service was.
It was kind of a whatever. If you had trash in bags people would put it at the curb. If you had a garbage can of your choice, they put it in the garbage can.
And it didn't matter what kind of garbage can it was.
It did not matter. You could put it at the curb, you could put it at the front door, you could put it at the back door, and, you know, your hauler was on foot searching for garbage carts.
When you say hauler, these are the men and women who work for, at the time,
The
and
contractor.
still, the contractor to
Which
come
was
and
waste management. Yeah.
they're still, they had to get out of the truck, find your trash.
Yep.
And if you didn't have it in a place where they found it, could they skip you or?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm sure that was a lot of your garbage issues, your garbage misses that were reported was because, you know, they couldn't find it or dogs were after them in the backyard. I mean, there was just so many things, you know, that caused some of these, well, I would say across the nation. When I talk to other entities, they talk about they cannot believe that we were doing backdoor services in the late 20s.
In the 21st century still.
I mean, come on. And so, you know, that was a huge transition for our constituents.
And so it was almost safety issues.
Absolutely. Well. It was 100% liability for any employee that was a garbage hauler.
Now, whose liability would that fall under? Since we were on a contract with
well,
it be?
Both. I mean, you know, even though we have a contract with Waste Management, city's still responsible. I mean, they have their own, you know, their own liability, their own rules, but our contract stated, you know, all those years that they had to pick it up in the back door.
So from backdoor services, trash pickup, to, as many have called those big green monsters, it was a change, and I was a part of it to see the change when it came to these new, everybody being uniform and having the same bins. There were a lot of questions. What if I can't take it down? Or what if I live on, for instance, Highland, which is a major highway, but the houses kind of sit up high? What if, you know, I don't put it out on time? What if somebody steals mine? A lot of questions with these big green monsters. So that Waste Management, you say they are our contractors for trash pickup. Kind of, if you don't mind, explain a little bit on how that contract, what Waste Management is responsible for doing, and if they don't do it, what can we as citizens do? Can we report it?
Okay. Well, Waste Management, they provide twice a week pickup for residential and commercial hand. Commercial hand is our smaller businesses that don't produce enough trash to rent a dumpster.
So pause real quick.
Okay.
I'm from Memphis. My mom's trash day is, I think, Monday. And she can't put it out again until that next Monday.
Right.
You're saying that we have 2 days a week that we can put out our trash.
Absolutely. That's 180,000 pickups a month that Waste Management performs.
That's a lot of trash.
That's right.
Or, let me rephrase it.
Really,
it might not be a lot of trash, but that's a lot of picking up. I mean, 180 pounds?
180,000 pickups.
180,000 pickups.
A month.
A month.
Because we have 23,000 residentials that are paying customers.
Wow. So 2 pickups a year. I mean, not a year, I'm sorry. 2 pickups per week.
Yes.
That's a lot of picking up.
At 96 gallons of the green monsters.
Right.
They're
So
96-gallon carts.
Before we had the green monsters, and we'll get back on topic, before we had the green monsters, we still had the two times a week pickup. And this the backdoor service, or wherever they picked it up. Just going more in depth into waste management contracts. What, if you know, were they happy with the change of being able to use these green bins?
Absolutely. I mean, efficiency, routing, everything changed for them as well. They invested in the automatic side lift trucks just strictly for this contract, and being able to use the automatic, so your driver's not getting out near as much. Now, in the contract, we added the hand piles, and a hand pile is a 3x5x3 pile. Whether that's limbs, yard debris, a few extra bags, up to 10 bags that don't weigh more than 50 pounds each, outside the cart, and that's included in your twice-a-week pickup. If we have such a unique service and a contract with Waste Management here in Jackson that if our residents or constituents understood how to properly dispose of trash, they could get so much through just their weekly trash pickup. So your hand pile it needs to be outside your cart. And your cart has to be at the curb with that hand pile, because once the driver disposes of the trash inside the cart, he utilizes that cart to dispose of the pile beside it. So he actually has to physically get out of his truck, put that hand pile in the actual cart, and then it's lifted in that side lift for the top loader. So a lot of people will call and say, my hand pile was missed, but then Waste Management will send us a photo back showing us that the cart was not out with the hand pile, because either they didn't have garbage or whatever the situation may be. But they actually have to utilize that cart to dispose of the trash because it's a top loader. You know, if you've ever seen the new ASL trucks. So.
I've seen the new trucks, and every time I see them, it's like, in my head, I'm like, man, they're so aggressive. But, I mean, it's the way, if any of you are watching and ever see one of the new trucks, it's a side loader. The little yellow arm comes out the side, grabs the truck, grabs the bin, tosses it, makes sure everything's out, brings it back down. So I guess, is there a little trick if, let's say you can't put the stuff in the bin, can you still bring the empty bin out and put the hand pile there? And will they...
Absolutely.
So that's a way, if I can't lift the bag into my green bin, as long as I have my green bin out on my trash day and my hand pile next to it, they'll pick it up.
Now, when you say lift the bag, are you talking about...
So if it's heavy trash, and I can't put it in my bin, but I still have maybe a little bag in my bin, as long as I bring my bin out and have my hand pile or the compliant size 3x5x3 next to my bin, will they be able to, or is there a weight limit for what the hand pile?
There is a weight limit, because just like you said, if you can't pick it up and put it in the cart, then more than likely your driver's not going to be able to pick it up. And then too, I have a lot of folks that don't understand this, but if they pick it up and it busts open, who's responsible for cleaning up that mess? You know what I mean? They're on a route,
right? And
they've got several thousand customers that they have to pick up on that day. So they can't stop and clean up the mess that they made trying to get your trash, your heavy bag loaded into that cart. So that's why there is a weight limit.
Okay. So the weight limit it's important to remember, because like you said, if you can't lift that bag into that bin, more than likely the driver can't lift it as well into the bin and pick it up.
Without making
a mess.
A severe mess.
A severe mess.
Now, if that happens and you have a garbage bag that's full and it's too heavy, then we have the bulk waste service that will come by and pick up when you schedule that.
And we'll definitely get into that bulk waste, because that's one of the newest things that we have. And got mixed reviews on it, but we'll come back into that. So one thing we've talked about anytime I come over to your office about the big green monsters is, if you can put it in there, Waste Management
put it in there. Absolutely.
So
even if I drive through sometimes making inspections through our area, because we do have a quality assurance officer that makes sure that Waste Management is not leaving behind hand piles and doing their inspections as well. But I'll go through, areas of town as well, and I see these little bitty sticks that are sitting at the curb, and I'm like, I want to get out and I want to put it in their garbage cart. So even little things like that, if it's going to fit in your garbage cart, put it in there, as long as it's not hazardous or liquid, because that's why they call it solid waste. Waste Management will only pick up solid waste.
Okay. So, and I try to tell people that I know, if you got a little pile of trash, just put it in your bin.
Yeah. If it fits,
we got to take it to
Stick
the
it
dump.
in there.
We got to take it to the dump some kind of way. So I think some of the rules for the green bin was the lid has to close.
Right.
And that's, I guess, for those who have 4 or 5 kids or just use a whole lot of trash, that hand pile portion of this contract helps with that. Is that?
It does, but we do try to encourage. We have several hundred residents that have certain situations that their waste production exceeds the 96 gallon twice a week. So instead of putting loose garbage bags out there for wild animals to go through or even people pilfer through, it's insane, but we have that. They get an extra cart, so they can rent an additional cart for $5 a month extra. And so that's 192 gallons twice a week that you get for $22.84 a month.
So going back to how it used to be, did it matter how many cans you had?
There were no limits.
They just have to come and pick it
There
up.
were absolutely no limits. And that's why, I mean, people expect the city to be spotless. It's trash. And as long as there's human beings on the face of this earth, there's going to be trash. We work every day to try to improve. We do research. We're looking into waste diversion to try to help get some of this stuff off the street. People need to understand that, like I said, the amount of garbage services that the city of Jackson provides, you can pretty much get rid of anything on a weekly basis.
Twice a week.
Twice a week, and then you have 12 bulk waste pickups a year.
So in a way, there shouldn't be a reason for trash to be on the side.
Absolutely
not. And that's what this education is for,
Yes.
to let people know, here are the services, here's how we use them. So when it comes to those, like I said, when we had the initial change into the new green bins, there were a lot of questions, and there were questions like, what if somebody steals mine, or what if something happens to mine? What can the citizens do if, like for instance, my wheel came off? What can I do to make sure it gets fixed? And am I responsible for my own green?
You are not responsible for the damage or anything that gets done, especially, I mean, waste management, they're popping the wheels off. That was a learning curve too. Me and Kim, waste management DM, we've laughed a lot with the wheels flying off, and people will call and they'll be like, I don't even know where the wheel went. Well, it obviously went into the truck when it popped off, because like you said, when they empty it, they kind of have to do it a little harshly, because some people pack trash in there. So I've gotten calls where people are like, I've got a garbage bag still in my can. You didn't empty it all the way. Well, something got lodged. So they try to have a harsher, a harder disposal when they hit that. Well, half the time the wheels are popping off. So all you have to do is call and report it. You can self schedule or self-report by the 311 app, by emailing H&S, by calling the 311 center. And we do have a system where we track the turnaround time on waste management. So if you call and you say, I've got a wheel missing, and then a week later it still hasn't been repaired, then you need to give us a call back.
So and for those who, like, let's say a wheel is missing, is it best to leave their can on the curb to make sure they see it?
You don't necessarily. Okay, so you have like HOAs, and HOAs are big time. Don't want you to leave the cart at the curb. By the way, I love HOAs. They make my job a lot easier. But those that can't leave it at the curb, if they can just put it in the front of the house where the driver or the repair employee can actually see the cart from, they just don't go into people's garages and carports and all that. So as long as they can see the cart, they'll get it.
Okay, and for those who may not can roll their can, do you have a hardship implementation where they can sign up for it?
We do. It is the disability hardship application. They have to fill it out. And then they can send that, the physician actually has to sign off on that. Once we receive that application, we send over the request, and Waste Management will pick up in the front of the house. It can be at the house, but in the front. It cannot be over any or under any awning, porch, anything, because that's liability.
It needs to be visible for the driver to see it.
From the street, and they will pick it up.
So would they just roll it down to where it's on the curb, and they use the arm again to?
Yeah. So the driver will actually have to get out of the truck, and he goes in and retrieves the cart.
So there are no more backload trucks for residential.
They do have a couple of those that are hard to get into areas, like certain. You mentioned Highland.
Like those alleys.
Yes.
Okay.
So they do not service in any alleys except for the ones that are like North Highland, where they have the retaining wall, and that alley runs behind, and they're able to get to it, and it's accessible.
So this is trash.jacksontn.gov. We have a whole lot of information about waste management and the trash disposal and how we do it. I remember when we did the initial video of how to use it's crazy that we had to do a video on how to use a trash man. But back then, had a lot of complaints, a lot of questions, and those questions have kind of died down a little bit. People are getting more used to it. We don't hear as much, or you don't hear as much. Phones aren't ringing as loud as. Also, there's when it comes to delayed service. For instance, when it's iced outside, I have to put out, information on, hey, trash would be delayed. What is the turnaround time for that? Or do they have a implementation on, we're going to pick it up as soon as the roads are clear? Or what can residents do to make sure that they're not getting trash on trash on trash during an event like that?
That's a hard question. It's just like, I use this example all the time. When COVID hit, people they weren't prepared for COVID. They weren't prepared for a city to shut down and to work remotely from home. And trash kept building up, but we continued on. We had to work alongside of the landfill and Waste Management. They had times where half their fleet was down because of COVID. And so basically you just tell folks to put it out, and we will get to it as soon as we can. The longest I've seen it go is a week since I've been here for 4 years. That was when the ice storm happened and the city shut down. And what folks didn't understand was Waste Management was willing to put their trucks out and their drivers out if they could get down certain roads, but the landfill was closed, and it was impossible to get up the road to the landfill. So they have to work together.
So Waste Management is kind of working on making, if the landfill is closed, Waste Management, even if they're able to pick it up, they won't, because they're not going to leave trash in the trucks.
Right, you can't. I mean, you think about the amount of trash that you have, plus it becomes a health issue.
And so it's one thing, we implemented a text alert service, and Bulk Waste has an alert service as well. But one thing I encourage people to do is sign up for that text alert, because most times, most times, communications come through this office, and we make sure they get the word out on the holidays and for instances like the ice storm where trucks couldn't get by. We're going to do our best to make sure that our residents know when their trash will be picked up. Right. But until then, it's just kind of be patient. We're going to do what we can, versus back before the green bins. I mean, I can only imagine how backdoor service and no communication to the residents was. Do you have an instance of prior to the green bins, how bad it was during like ice storms or anything?
It was really hard on the contractor. It was really hard for them to get caught up and get back to a regular service with folks. And a lot of people don't have patience when they're inconvenienced.
We both
And,
learned that.
yep. And so that's probably the biggest obstacle that we face with each event, really. I mean, we try to keep the lines of communication open. The partnership with us in waste management has grown since I've been here. We meet more often. We discuss things, like after an event, we kind of sit down and we talk about what we could do better or some of the things that we need to improve on. And
so y'all are still learning together as well as
absolutely
we progress in this trash pickup service.
Absolutely.
So 311, it's a tool that residents can use to report missed trash pickup if something happens to their green bins.
Yes.
But then we also have another app through H&S, the bulk waste app. And bulk waste, it's another topic on its own that we can talk about. It's the way that we do it now. It's definitely new. I was just on the day of this recording, and meeting with some Boy Scouts with the mayor, and they asked about bulk waste and the service that we have. And I think one of their troop leaders asked about, well, it used to be where trucks would just come and see, but now they'll pass by a pile and pick up a pile next to it. The whole bulk waste implementation, in a nutshell, just overall explain kind of how it is, the guidelines, and if you have any tips on what people can do to make sure this service is utilized correctly.
Okay. Prior to us scheduling, we ran routes. So we covered 600, square miles of streets.
Yeah, so it's a lot of streets.
And so that's a lot of miles. And so we would put our drivers in all the different districts. We're divided up internally into 6 districts. And we would put trucks out and they would start at point A and go to point B. And depending on what was in between was how long it would take us to get around and complete a route. So when people would call and say, well, when are you going to be here? And we just couldn't tell them. We could tell them where we were, but depending on if we had truck breakdowns, if we had sick folks off, if we had vacations off, that's one driver. And one driver averages about 30 pickups a day.
And this is prior to or?
Yes, this is prior to scheduling. So our biggest complaint was we don't know when you're coming, and then of course the time frame that it took for us to get back around. So we would clean a street, and no lie, within 2 days, people would be putting stuff back out on that street, knowing that it had taken us 4 to 5 weeks to get back around.
That street.
Yeah, so that was a never-ending battle. So when we went to this implementation of scheduling pickups, it made sense in Atlanta, Georgia with 500,000 people. So I thought, we can do this. And we had to study. We had to do a lot of research. We had to ask a lot of questions. And the biggest complaint from Atlanta, Georgia was when their citizens said the same thing. Well, you didn't pick the pile up next to our neighbor. Well, that one was scheduled. The other one was not. Or it could have been scheduled on down the line. Efficiency is a big thing when people want to discuss that. But I tell folks at the end of the day, does efficiency really matter if you're getting the services that you're paying for? I did a fuel study from 22 to 23, which was a full year of us doing bulk waste scheduling. And at the end of the year, we saved a little over $19,000 in fuel. And people can't process that because until you explain to them that I'm going straight to you because you need that service, but I'm not taking the long way around to get to you.
You're going straight to me.
I'm going straight to you, exactly. And then I'm going straight to the next one, and then we're going straight to the next one. So you're actually saving money or fuel by not having to just look for piles. And it's time management as well.
Yeah. So prior to the bulk waste, you mentioned how somebody would be like, well, you haven't picked mine up. When are y'all coming? It also, I guess, does it depend on how much? Let's say that street, you just clean it up. After you clean that street up, you have to go probably dump that load from the back of the truck, then drive back to that.
That's right.
Wherever part of the route they were on. So with the new bulk waste service, like you say, you're coming straight to me because I schedule, and then you go to somebody else who doesn't have it scheduled, and it can be up to me to share with my neighbor, hey,
That's
here's
right.
the bulk waste, here's
Or
the
you
app.
can even report your
Or
neighbor.
I can report it,
Mhm.
and they'll get the notification, hey, you've got 12 times a year. Let's talk about the guidelines of, if you have them, you can read them off, the guidelines of bulk waste. And she has them to read them off, but there's also, you can go to the website, bulkwaste.jacksontn.gov. Kind of talk about the guidelines of bulk waste.
Okay.
Well,
I mentioned time management, and we put some guidelines on the size piles, and people they pushed back on that a lot. But when we were meeting about this and trying to make sense of what would be a reasonable pile, time management came in, because if we fill up a truck, which is a 30-yard grapple truck, it's the big open tops on the back of the call trucks. When we fill that up, when we have to go dump, you can take off an hour of our time, because getting to the dump, weighing in, going up there and disposing it, and then coming back down and weighing out, and then getting back to where you started or where you left off at, is about an hour. So we average about 2 hours a day out of the 8-hour day at the dump. So we put on there 150 piles max a day,
Okay.
a day, because we have 10 operators, and they average about 30 piles a piece.
Okay, so it's not 150 per driver. It's 150.
No, it's 150 total for the day.
For the day. Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And when they go and dump, come back, start where they left off, could be anywhere. We route the dispatch report every morning. Our superintendent, he does that where we're more efficient on where everybody goes. And that's kind of how our bulk waste is. So when we get to the guidelines, we did a 5 by 8 by 5 pile, which is about the size, a little less than an 8-yard dumpster. That's quite a bit of trash, quite a bit of brush, that we pick up. And that allows us to know how many we're going to pick up during the day. So people are like, well, why do you want us to separate? If we've got 2 or 3 piles, why do you want us to separate that? Why can't it just be one big pile? Well, it kind of gives us a portion and a time management, so that 3 of those 25 piles are designated to you. So he knows that when he goes to this address, he's got 3 piles to pick up.
So it allows him to think, okay, I might not be able to get to down the street until I go dump these 3 piles.
So if we stopped at every address that was not scheduled for that day, how are we going to get to the folks at the back of the list that were scheduled for the day? So that's what I explained to folks. We left that pile because either one, it wasn't scheduled, or it's scheduled for another day. But we have to tend to the folks that are scheduling their piles. They're expecting that service that day.
They're expecting that service that day because they scheduled for Thursday, July, whatever day.
That's right.
And that's the day they expect their. And a driver may have another pile, a few piles to pick up before that, but because I scheduled on this Thursday, no matter how many trips he has to take to dump to get to mine, he's coming back to mine because I scheduled it correctly, even if my neighbor has a pile out.
It doesn't make sense to those that don't understand time management, but it's just like any other business that is scheduled. Your UPS drivers. I could go on and on with the services that people pay for, and they have to schedule it. Your pest control folks.
Cable.
You may, this one job might take 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next job down the road might take an hour. You only have an 8-hour day.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? It's just
scheduling it, and if I get to somebody who's not scheduled, it takes out from my 8 hours.
That's exactly right. That's why we can't just because we're on your street pick up everything that's out there, because these folks, they're working on scheduled folks. They're working on the scheduled services.
And that scheduled service, it's routed out, so they know, your drivers know exactly where they're going each
For
morning.
efficiency, that's right.
So when it comes to routing, you're not going to have a driver, I guess, like in the previous, before the bulk waste, who would just drive wherever to get. They know they're not going to go from. You don't have a driver that's in North Jackson, has a schedule in North Jackson, and then has to go out to the Atlanta area
Or all the way out south.
All the way out south.
Exactly.
So you have how many drivers again? Do you have?
We have 10 drivers, but the majority of the time you average, depending on truck breakdowns or anything like that, we average about 6 to 7 on those
That's still
lists.
a good number.
That's right.
With 150 piles per day.
Yeah.
So explain what a bulk waste pile is. Can you mix? Can you separate? Explain a bulk waste pile, because again, like when I got here, I would hear hand pile and bulk waste. Like, what's the difference?
So bulk waste is what it says. It's bulk items. It's items that cannot fit into the garbage cart, that waste management cannot physically handle to get into the garbage truck. Yard debris, and there are restrictions on the yard debris too. I had a lot of flack about that because people were like, if I cut it down myself, it's a big, huge tree. That's fine, but we have to have safety dimensions, because you think about a claw truck and how much it can hold. And if we put a huge tree trunk in the back of that truck and it shifts and we're on the top of the hill at the landfill, it can be a safety hazard. Yeah. So we have restrictions because of that. So it's 12 inches, nothing bigger than a 12-inch diameter of a tree, piece of a tree, and it cannot be any longer than 8 feet long. And that's why that's the 5 by 8 by 5, because the 8 is the length, the length of the pile.
And 5 width and 5.
And 5 height, yeah. Mm-hmm. And that, like I said, once again, that gives us some type of time management to be able to get our drivers en route and know what they're up against for the day. If you've got 3 brush piles at your house and you've scheduled all 3, then he allots that time for those 3 piles to be able to move on to the next one and get the rest of the 20, like I said, 22. If he's fully loaded of a list, then he's got 25 customers he's got to get to today.
So there are a few things that I want to talk about as far as, like, for instance, the trees. The rules behind if I cut it down myself versus if I hire somebody. Mm-hmm. How does that work? Because I've seen people who have trees on the side of their own, and it looks like it's professionally done. I mean, the trees are huge, and the people who are coming out the house don't look like they probably can, but sometimes they might not look like they can cut down a tree that big. They probably hired a professional. How does that work when it comes to professionals taking the trees off or the city picking them up?
So my drivers are trained to kind of look for non-compliant piles before they pick it up. And if they see a huge tree in the backyard that's been cut down, sometimes limbs, portions of the tree are cut off and they're like 20 feet up in the air, 30 feet up in the air. They know that that's not being done by the property owner, of course, unless there's equipment sitting back there. If there's equipment sitting back there, they'll usually just go on and pick it up, But the mindset behind the services from a professional tree cutter is that they're getting paid to do this. The city of Jackson has to pay that landfill cost. So, it gets put back on the tree cutter, and the property owner is responsible for passing that along to whoever they contract to make that service happen.
So the tree cutter, whoever you're contracted with, should have something in their guidelines or whatnot that they're supposed to take it off, or at least you should read what you're signing when you're hiring these contractors. Also, when it comes to construction debris, we've talked about this.
Right.
Explain how, if I'm doing a remodel of my home, can that be bulk waste, or how does that work?
So the new ordinance, when we got down into the weeds of the new ordinance, construction debris was a no-go, period. It doesn't matter if now, prior to this new ordinance, if you put it out there, we would pick it up. But we no longer pick up any construction debris. So that's lumber, that's sheetrock, that's toilets. I mean, we have to send folks letters all the time because that's what they were used to. But sheetrock, all that kind of debris is just a mess to clean up, and then of course it litters our street. Wind blows, storm blows, sheetrock falls apart, it's just a mess. So it was voted that we do not pick up any kind of construction debris on the curb at all. That is 100% property owner's responsibility to haul off.
And you mentioned keywords property owner. There's a difference, of course, with residential. But residential is everybody who lives wherever, but then you have your homes and then you have your apartments. What's the technical name for the difference? Are they all they're all residential?
They're residential, right? But then your apartment complexes become commercial.
Okay.
So anything after a duplex, anything higher than a duplex, we do not service.
As far as bulk waste?
That's exactly
okay.
Right. Yes.
So what should the owners of those apartment complexes or multi-use buildings, what should they do?
I mean, if they've got bulk waste, they'll have to haul it off themselves. There are a couple of apartment complexes in town that rent open tops, and their property owners, their landlords allow them to put their furniture and whatever, bulk items in those open tops, but you cannot put bulk items in dumpsters. Right. So a lot of people will put their stuff around the dumpsters, and that's illegal. They can't. I mean, that's just against policy. It's a violation of the property maintenance. Now,
when it comes to those bigger dumpsters, there are some apartment complexes have them, and some. The apartment that I used to live in was a compactor, but it was still waste management. But you do have some with the flip top. How does that differ from the green bins? How does waste management handle those?
They're different types of equipment to load and haul. That's the reason why. So your open tops are mainly what they used to call your construction, because you can put construction debris in that. You can put large bulk items in that, and it can be hauled safely.
But these are separate from waste management. Do they have any of these open top?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, those are permanent.
You can rent those?
Yes, those are permanent. We did exclude temporary open tops from our new contract. So that's an open market now. If you're needing to rent construction dumpsters for 6 months or less, you can contact any hauler that you need, but it does need to be temporary. Permanent is the contract with Waste Management.
Gotcha. And the compliant part, 5 by 8 by 5. What other compliance is there? Like, I've got yard and brush, and I have what you could consider trash, furniture. Yeah. Should I mix that to make one pile, or?
We actually, I think in the ordinance it says to separate, and that gets us prepared for if we had a major storm, a tornado, and we had to call in emergency contractors to help us get the city cleaned up. We have seen in the past that contractors will come through town and they'll be like, you can't commingle, because they want the brush to go somewhere to be burned. They'll have a burn site, and this is in an emergency situation. And then you have the trash or the waste, the solid waste that needs to be disposed in the landfill. So we trying to get folks on that same page to separate. I mean, we'll pick it up at the same time, and it still goes to the same place right now. One thing we are working on is, since we're talking about it, is waste diversion with brush. And we are looking into contracting that out to recycle brush. So that would keep the brush from going into the landfill and then be utilized, for mulch.
It's another way to just let people know, hey, here's another reason to keep it separate.
Right, okay. Right. And we did a trial run for the last, I think it was 2 months we did it, and it was very successful.
That's awesome. That sounds like a positive thing for the environment.
Yes.
To recycle brush.
Yes.
Especially if we keep it separated. When it comes to that, there might be people who will be like, I've got a brush pile, but somebody threw a little bag of, Doritos into my brush pile. Will that be considered non-compliant, or will they pick it up with it?
They'll pick it up.
Okay.
I mean, it's considered contamination, but if we were to recycle brush, because the hauler, the vendor, whoever's going to be mulching has got to take that out.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So it's considered contamination, but they're not going to leave a 5x8 by 5 pile there because there's a little chip bag in the middle of it.
So 12 times a year, every resident has for bulk waste. They can schedule it on the bulk waste app, and they can visit bulkwaste.jackson10.gov. Why 12 a year? Why not 13? Why?
When we did the study and the research, we put a lot of time and thought into all of this. We averaged most residents that are eligible. Now we need to go back to the eligibility. Okay. So you're a resident, you live in a single unit or a duplex, and you're a paying customer for waste management services or the garbage services. Mm-hmm. Then you qualify for the 12 pickups per year. Mm-hmm. All right. But going back to the 12 pickups, so when we averaged what most households used during the year, it was 9 pickups. Mm. And then you give or take a windstorm. We just added a few in there. It just made sense to go with an even number and more than what most people averaged.
Almost,
you could basically say once a month, but it is, you're not limited to once a month. I want folks to understand that. If you need it in the first month, if you want all 12 pickups in the first month, schedule it, we'll pick it up.
So you have
but you get 12 in the full calendar year, yes, from January to December, yes, and it starts right back over in January.
So keeping track of all that, through the Bulk Waste app and through your team, y'all are able to keep a better track of what you picked up and the people who.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So for those of us who have friends who don't know yet, can I share with them how to do it, or can I report it? How does that work?
Both. Let them know that they can self-schedule in just a matter of a couple of minutes. So Convenient sends you a confirmation if you do it by email or go onto our website and do it by our scheduling system. It sends you a direct email to give you the date that will be there. Now, there's not a specific time. We tell folks between the hours of 7 and 2:30, 7 a.m. to 2:30 p.m.
But that day.
Yep. And if they did not pick up and you did not get a notification for any reason, then more than likely it was a non-compliant pile, and you'll receive a letter or a notification that something was wrong with the pile. But if you're a neighbor and you know how to do it, you email Health and Sanitation, or you can report it on 311. And we ask that you not schedule it because of the duplication. If you go in and schedule it, but someone else has already scheduled it, there's no way for the system to tell you that it's already been scheduled, especially when you're reporting it for someone. So we just tell folks all the time, what we call it is pile patrol. Okay. My husband tells me all the time, I've gotten really good about it. We'll be riding 55 miles down the road and I can catch an address. And then I come back the next day and get it scheduled.
And so you mentioned you don't want others to schedule for them,
That's
but
right.
They can report it.
Yes.
And that reporting ends up going to your office, and you can cross-reference if that
That's
has
right.
been scheduled
Yep.
already. But if I schedule it for them, how will your office, will they know? I guess, will that be considered two schedules if I schedule for somebody else on another
Right,
day?
because if they have it scheduled for that Friday and you don't know about it, and you've scheduled it for the Monday following, then that's 2 piles deducted from their 12 for the year. Because the system does keep up with that.
And then let's say that does happen and the driver goes out that Sunday or that day that I report it, even though they've been scheduled. The day that I schedule my neighbor and the driver goes out on that day, will they be nice about it and be like, hey, there was no pile, let's not count them? Or is there a...
That's just a matter of communication, and a lot of times that doesn't get done. I mean, you think about all the things that we do, all the piles that we have to list and schedule. Sometimes it gets caught. And that's kind of that's kind of how, when we first realized we were putting it out there that you could schedule your neighbor. But then all of a sudden we started getting a lot of duplicates, or it would be a dry run for my driver, which kind of wasted his time. You know what I'm saying? When that could have been a legit person that we could have gotten in. So I went out with one of the drivers and met with a resident who had reported a pile, but their address, they put their pile on another piece of property that they own. What is your advice to residents who might own a vacant lot next to them, where I don't want my trash in front of my house, but I'm gonna put it in this vacant lot, but I'm gonna put my address? What is your advice to residents who do something like that? If you do not own that lot, it is considered illegal dumping. I've had a few people to call and want to discuss that with me, and there's not a whole lot I can do about it. I mean, if you don't own that lot and you don't have permission from that property owner to place your debris out there for us to pick up, then you're really considered illegal dumping.
Well, what about those property owners who own, their home is at 123 Main, but they own a vacant lot at 125 Main, and then they put all their debris on that vacant lot? They own the lot, but they also own the house. Should they put their address, or should they put the vacant lot address?
Yes, no, they need to put their home address that they reside at, because the system actually acknowledges our residential paying customers.
Okay.
They're not going to acknowledge that vacant lot. So even if you try to enter that into our system, it's not going to recognize the vacant lot.
Even if I own that lot. So
that's right. So if
is there a note?
Yes,
where I can put
there is a place in when you schedule for comments, and you can just put pile is located on my lot next door.
Okay.
You know, we see that quite often. As long as people communicate with us through that, our superintendent prints those lists out with those notes.
Okay.
Sometimes you might be at a corner house, and your address is on Campbell, but your actual pile is on the side street right there. And my driver's going to be looking for it in front of that address. So if you have a side street, make sure you just make that note that the pile is on whatever street.
So communication goes both ways. We let H&S know my pile is on the side of my street, not necessarily my address, but I'm going to put my address in there, and you communicate with us by picking it up or letting us know, because our information is in the system.
Right.
So bulkwaste.jacksontn.gov, they can download. I mean, there are a lot of apps now.
There's so many different ways.
Bulk waste.
Yes.
But
the website is it's trash.jacksontn.gov. That takes you straight to the scheduling page. You can do the 311 app. You can call the 311 call center.
And then now on the 311 app, if you want to choose bulk waste, it will take you to the
scheduling page.
Yep.
Now, but if you're going to report it, we want you to email us. So you can also email. If you don't want to deal with the 311 and you don't want to deal with the website, you just like to email. Shoot it to the email. We check that box multiple times a day.
That's H&S, that's the ampersand sign, hns.jacksontn.gov. And I'll have the link in the description and here at the bottom of the screen. hns@jacksontn.gov. There's so much with health and sanitation, and we'll have you back on, and we'll even go into the weeds of talking to someone at the 311 Center, talk to our recycling coordinator. That's a whole different side of HNS.
It is.
And recycling is a big deal as well.
Yes.
And so we'll try to get Derek Marshall on at some point to talk recycling, because it also, again, it falls under health and sanitation. What else falls under health and sanitation? So
It's
recycling,
solid waste pickup, commercial pickup, and then bulk waste.
and 311 is the number to call to reach out to HNS to make sure that they have questions.
Yes.
They can call 311,
Yes.
or they can reach out through the 311 app, or visit 311.jacksontn.gov. Health and sanitation, again, it's a major department for this city because you essentially are that department that makes sure that we are a clean city. And Leilani, you've done an amazing job over there.
Thank you.
I've seen you do it. I've seen the work. I've been there when the calls were coming in nonstop, and I've been there when it's quiet. And it's a beautiful thing that you've done over there with your team, you and Chris and everyone over there. So thank you. I mean, I'm a resident. I'm a city co-worker with you, but I'm a resident, and I've seen the difference, and it's been an amazing change. I think I talked to you about this, but we had a national organization come through the city, and one of their representatives said it's the cleanest city that they've been in of the over 80 stops that they've been in for this year. That, to me, is a testament of the great work that you all are doing over at HNS.
Appreciate it.
So, Leilani Mills here for Less Than 11, talking HNS. And again, there's a whole lot to talk about with HNS, but you all can visit trash.jacksontn.gov. That will take you to the main page for our HNS department. Then there are sub-pages for bulk waste, recycling, and many other services with the health and sanitation department. Leilani, has been great talking to you about trash. Talking trash, that was
That's
the title
right.
of it when we
That's
first
right.
moved over to the big green bins, and it's been a wonderful transition to see. Again, for the waste management drivers, don't have to get out their truck as much. Don't have to worry about possibly getting ran off by a dog, or have to go on property for a safety issue. Somebody sees somebody coming to their property, they're just coming to pick up trash, or they were just coming to pick up trash.
Right.
Might call the police on them, but now drivers can just pick up with the side loader. And if you haven't had a chance to see those side loaders, check them out.
Yep.
So with this being East Main 101 education, I have what I like to call pop quiz. And it's just 3 questions about my guest, not necessarily a quiz. So got 3 questions. The first question is that in your bio you mentioned that you like to go camping. What is your absolute favorite campsite?
My favorite campsite is Pickwick on the lower part of the dam.
Okay.
It is full of huge old pine trees. It's shady. You get to hear the rumble of the river in the background. It's my favorite place to go.
So do y'all have a boat? Do y'all go out on the lake?
We used to when our children were young. We try to simplify things now that we're at the age we are. It's just me and him. We're empty nesters now, so we try to simplify and just enjoy the finer
What,
things.
like 30 years old?
I'm not going to tell you how old I am.
So question number 2. So I've been there a few times, not as much as I would like to. Back when I worked for the Sun, we would go down and get pictures of whatnot. So I haven't been in a long time. I'm sure it's grown since then. So question number 2, pop quiz question number 2. If there were one piece of advice you would like to give the public about keeping the city clean, what would it be?
Just, I guess it would be to communicate, take advantage of all the resources that we have. We offer community cleanup once a month. Usually in the summer months, we'll have our very first one this year, actually this Saturday. And just take advantage of all the resources that we have. We do have a unique solid waste program for Jackson, Tennessee, and then report anything illegal, because that's just going to stop it.
So take advantage of our services.
Yes.
And report anything illegal. Communication that we have now is gotten a lot better.
That's right.
Reaching out to the city, having almost direct access through Facebook, through Instagram, through all the apps, through the website, email, of course. So taking advantage of these resources. She's not lying when she says take advantage. These resources that we have, they're here for our citizens.
That's right.
And I mean, they're paying out, what is it?
$17.84 a month.
$17.84 a month for 2 pickups and bulk waste. All the services that we offer.
And hand piles.
And hand piles. That's nothing compared to other cities who probably looking to us to see
how we're doing
it.
They are.
So that's a testament again to the Department of H&S and your leadership. Question number 3. You're headed down to Pickwick, and you need some kind of music if you choose music. What is your favorite song to listen to or genre of music as you're headed down to Pickwick?
I'm going to tell a little bit of my age. I am a 70s baby, and so my mother loved oldies. Peaceful times in my life were from the 70s and early 80s. So I now turn to 103.1, which used to be the oldies. Okay. And me and my husband realized we're now in the oldies genre. So we like to listen to the older music, brings back good memories and peaceful times.
And that's called a radio station for those young people who don't know. It's a radio station.
A radio station.
Actually,
103.
you have to actually turn the
FM.
dial.
FM.
So, so you like listening? Do you have a favorite oldie song that if it comes on,
that I jam?
You and Scott are jamming in the car. I can put on some. I'm an '80s baby, but my mom's the same way. Oldies. I grew up listening to like Al Green and stuff like that. I could hear some Al Green, I'm jamming in the car.
Honestly, when Madonna comes on, I'm rocking it.
There you go. Madonna. Leilani and Madonna. And you mentioned your mom, Sharon. We love Sharon. She's an amazing woman who, when I got here, she was in risk management every Wednesday, hump day. She would get on the intercom and talk about it. And so we'll try to get her on at some point to talk about the stormwater services that she does. So she works in the building with you. This is a bonus pop quiz. And how is it to have your mom back and working closer with y'all? Still cut up the way y'all do?
She does. Okay. And it's funny because she only works 2 days a week. And if she doesn't show up on one of those days, I have staff members that are like, "Where's your mom?" It's great.
So we love Sharon. And again, Leilani Mills, thank you for all that you have done with H&S, the transition. I mean, it's been as smooth as it can be.
Right.
I mean, it's change for the city of Jackson. And change, it comes, and we make the best of it. And we've done it through H&S. Thank you again for coming on to lesson.
Thank you for having me.
For East Main 101. So again, that is lesson 11 for East Main 101 with H&S Director Leilani Mills. Of course, you all know there is homework. So your homework for lesson 11 is to download the bulk waste app, look it over, schedule if you need to, tell your friends about it, tell your family about it. We want to keep the city as clean as we can be. And with our H&S department, the communication is open. You can reach out to our 311 by dialing 311 or visiting 311.jacksontn.gov. And again, that bulk waste app, you can visit bulkwaste.jacksontn.gov or just visit trash.jacksontn.gov, and that will take you again to the H&S department's landing page where you can see all the sub pages under that. Again, thank you again for coming in and watching East Main 101 Lesson 11 with Health and Sanitation Director Leilani Mills. Visit our website, eastmain101.jacksontn.gov, to sign up to subscribe via YouTube and Spotify. Follow us on all of our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, and the others. Until next week,